I'm so excited today to have Gretchen Salyer, CEO of Childcare, as well as Emily Monley, the head of growth at Childcare, today to talk about childcare, because I know in my business and my practice that parents are always struggling to find reliable childcare. So welcome to both of you for being here with me today.
Thank you so much for having us, Catherine. It's so great to chat with you, and I'm so glad we could join.
Yes. Well, let's start off and kind of introduce yourselves to our audience and tell us a little bit about your background, your family, and maybe what you're working on these days.
Yeah, so I'll start. So as you said, my name is Gretchen. I am the founder and CEO of Childcare, and I guess personally, I spent the majority of my career working in technology. I was at a company called Intuit. I live in the Bay Area. So I was there for 12 years, had a variety of roles. By the end of my time there, I had a large international team. I was traveling a lot. I had 3 young children. I have 3 daughters, and I decided I would just take some time off. That was right before the pandemic. And then the pandemic hit. And I think, for those of your listeners who had children during the pandemic, there's kind of this shared PTSD that we all like to talk about. But the beauty of it was kind of out of that experience came Childcare, really as a way for us to survive. We were organizing childcare swaps, pods of childcare to just help us get by. And we just felt like it was better. And so that kind of spurred this grand experiment that is now a year and a half old, where we have this new approach to childcare, Childcare, connecting parents who are looking for childcare with stay-at-home parents who can help care for their kids. And I brought Emily into this journey really early. She was working for free for a long time, simply because she is up in Davis, but I don't want to tell your story for you, Emily, but was doing a lot of the same things as I was. And, we've been friends for a long time. We have very similar parenting philosophies and community philosophies. And so she kind of jumped on early to just help me think through it and get the word out. And, a year and a half later, venture capital, small team, here we are. So we're just thrilled to chat with you. Sorry, Emily, I did not mean to introduce you.
Oh, no, that's okay. I can be very brief. My name is Emily, and I'm the head of growth at Childcare. I, as Gretchen mentioned, live in Davis, California, and have 3 little ones, 8, 7, and 5. And my background is in a lot of kind of different things focused on bringing families together in a community, as well as kind of some people think of me as like a mompreneur or serial entrepreneur with various ventures. But I love being able to talk to families about Childcare and joining up neighbors everywhere, which is what June stands for. And so finding ways to do that with our partners, with individuals, and just getting involved in the community.
Yeah, I love that. And that was like one of the hardest things that I saw in my practice during the pandemic was just the lack of support that families had, like more than ever. Like there's always, I feel like for years and years, we've had a lack of support. Parents do. That's one of the reasons I started doing like meetup groups and stuff, because I feel like there's just not enough support out there. But then during the pandemic, it just like heightened how much lack of support there was around us. And it was so challenging. So I know I was excited I guess it's been a year now, Emily, that we connected and you told me about Childcare, and I've shared it with several of my clients, just because I think it's just a genius idea, and there's just, to offer different kinds of support to parents.
Yeah, it's so true, Catherine. And, the pandemic, I often talk about it as there's a long systemic childcare crisis in our country. More than half families who need childcare don't have it, which goes into your comment about lack of support. That got worse during the pandemic. And I think during the pandemic was when we all globally experienced that pain. So that brought, for me, definitely a heightened awareness to what it means to not have childcare and need income, which was genesis of this idea. But I think what you're doing is so important here, just bringing parents together to talk about questions, to share experiences, and to just feel a little bit more normal, I think is like more than half the battle. And what we're doing at Childcare is a little different, right? Because we're solving a childcare and an access to income issue, but at the core of it, it's really meant to be a platform that makes it easier to connect with your neighbors.
Right. Which is Yeah, is so great. And we need that so much. Like that's what one of the big things we were missing during the pandemic was just that community and that support and connection. Like people really had a hard time, right? So I could go on a total tangent of depression and anxiety rates, but yes, we need like that connection and community. And I just love that this is just another way to do that. So how do you see things now? Like how have things changed? Like I know it's like 3 years since the start of the pandemic, and it's not like things are automatically better and we have our own challenges, but what are you seeing now?
Yeah, so just related to childcare. So I mentioned childcare has always been a struggle in terms of
Mhm,
there was enough of it to go around, but the childcare landscape is actually pretty complex. And
mhm,
I would say it's complex and a little bit broken, which I'll talk about.
mhm.
And then also our needs have changed. And so because of that,
Yes.
we're now in a little bit of a crazy time where we have to think differently. So just like on the childcare landscape in general, I think the first thing for parents to understand is there's a lot of different approaches to childcare. A lot of those approaches are going to be based on a pre-pandemic world
Yeah.
and almost like a pre-Me Too movement world, honestly.
Okay.
But where it is based on, one partner in a family having a 9 to 5 job and then another partner
Mhm,
able to be home and really provide support and flex when it's needed. I think what we
mhm.
typically see is when a child is sick or when school's canceled or when the nanny calls in sick, it's usually the mom who's going to pick that up. And, that is just the way things are, but it doesn't mean that's the way that things work. But that being said, the childcare to consider, so daycare centers, I think those are pretty common. Most daycare centers now are requiring like full-time 9 to 5 schedules, which can work really well if that's your
Mhm.
schedule. Can be a little bit
Right.
harder if it's hybrid. They are the most affordable option. Typically, you're going to have a little bit of a higher care provider to child ratio. However, it is very programmatic. And so I think there's kind of a level of quality control that can be really consistent and comforting for parents. And then I think a lot of people
Yes.
like kind of that socialization, the ability to get the kids ready for school at an early
Mhm.
age. And so I think there's a lot of advantages to daycare centers. Most of the good ones have really long wait lists. So
Yes.
not to freak anybody out, but it might be a good idea to get your name on a wait list if
Yeah.
that's something you want to pursue and your children are really little. Then you
Yeah.
have similarly home-based daycares. So these are typically going to be a little bit more expensive than your daycare center. A little bit smaller care provider to child ratio. It's usually in someone's home. There's a little bit less regulation on these, but the good ones are the good ones. I would say with home daycares, it's good to just source a lot of people who have put their children through that daycare, spend time
Mhm.
meeting the daycare owner, making sure they are licensed. So home daycares are required to be licensed. So just
Yes.
always good to double check that.
Right.
But that can be a great option, and actually, aligns well with our model. And it's usually another parent or a former parent who is hosting those daycare centers or someone who's worked in childcare before who's decided to do something differently.
Mhm.
So just because of the supply demand wait lists. So you want to go ahead and get ahead,
Right.
search for a home daycare.
Yes.
Then you have kind of your third option for like really young kids, more traditional option is going to be nannies or au pairs. So nannies are hopefully self-explanatory. They're typically coming to your home. They usually do want a full-time schedule, which can work. They are the most expensive option in terms of childcare, but for families who really want that dedicated adult who's going to be focused on their children, really you have a lot more control in that scenario because they're in your home and you can be very specific. I do encourage you to be very specific about your expectations. I
Mhm.
encourage you to have a written contract with that nanny, no matter how like friendly it is at the beginning. It's always good
Yes.
to break down expectations, vacation time, sick time. With a nanny, you are going to be responsible for payroll taxes. So there's lots of great services out there to help you with that, but it is something to just be aware of, so you don't, get yourself in a sticky situation down the road. Au pairs are similar to nannies. They are more affordable, but more inconvenient. So an au pair is someone who is technically on a student/travel visa from a country. You can go through au pair agencies like Cultural Care, Au Pair Care. There's a ton of them, and they live with you. And you get, for most agencies, you get 40 hours of childcare for about $200 to $250 a week. In addition to, you also are paying for living expenses and food, typically a cell phone and a car. So it's not just $200 a week, but it's a unique experience if, you know, you have the space to have someone live with you and you're comfortable inviting someone into your home. You know, it's something we've used in the past, and we have an au pair now because it's something that works really well for driving. Once your kids get into extracurriculars, it's really nice. But it's not for everyone. You know, we're really comfortable living on top of each other, but that's just something that our family gets comfortable with. Then you have school. So once your kids are in school age, there are some school-based programs. So after school care, those start typically in kindergarten. Often they do also have wait lists. Again, it's just true. It's just this. I
know.
Those can be great. Those start to get a little trickier once your kids start to have activities after school, because then they're not really serving the childcare purpose that you need for that after school gap. Worth looking into. Some of those are even free. They're subsidized. So it can be really affordable and great, especially if you're working in an office. And then the final category is alternative childcare solutions. And these are, this is kind of where Juggle falls in. And this is really a response to the changing workforce of the pandemic. So parents having hybrid schedules, working from home, we need a different approach to childcare. And so something like Juggle, there's no long-term contracts. Our Juggle hosts are moms themselves. So it is like a home daycare, except we only match 1-to-1. So it's very small care provider to child ratio. It's in the host's home. So if you need your kids out of the house while you work, that's a really convenient option. But our hosts are 1099s. So you're not responsible for payroll taxes. And we have typically, you know, anywhere right now from like 30 to 50 hosts that are going to be in your area. And so lots of options depending on if you have a regular schedule or when you have a backup need. And there's other like drop-in centers like Brella that are starting to pop up. And so those are worth just looking into if you want to try something new and a little bit more catered towards your family without the expense of a nanny. So that's kind of your
overview. That's a good that's such a good overview. I love it. I love that you went through all those, because yes, I know exactly everything that you're talking about, but Brella is the only thing I haven't heard about before.
Yeah. And we can follow up. I don't know if you do like meetup notes or something, but we can follow up with links to this information.
Okay.
Because I know for moms who might be listening to this, it's like, whoa, that was, 7 different options.
Yeah.
We have this all documented just to help our families understand both what their options are, but also kind of like how to think about Juggle in that landscape.
Yeah, no, that sounds great. And I would love to be able to share that information with anyone that's listening to this, whether it's a recording or not. So yeah. Okay, so do you have like suggestions on how do you decide what to do? I mean, I realize there's like the pros and cons, and I have had, I've had clients that have tried au pair and then they realize that they struggle with like having somebody else in their home and kind of managing that, especially if their schedules are more like unpredictable and stuff. It can be difficult, meshing. And, same for like nannies or whatever. So I know there's like pros and cons to like all the different things, but like, how do you help? Like, do you help or give suggestions for people to like figure this out, or?
Yes. Yeah. And I mean, at the end of the day, we have a phrase, even for matches within our network, which is right for right. Like, because everyone's needs are unique and preferences are unique. There is no like perfect box for like every family. But the key considerations we usually ask people to consider is first their schedule. So what is the schedule where you're going to need care? Do you anticipate it being very consistent, like drop off at 9, pick up at 5? Because that's going to dictate just what your solution set looks like, right? In terms of options. Most families now don't have that kind of schedule. And I think that's where we're starting to see like a new bend on the crisis, I guess, show up is,
Right.
what are the solutions for what families actually need? The second is just location. So are you the type of parents who really want the care in your home? Or do you prefer to have your children experience, whether it's a daycare center or another, in our case, another stay-at-home mom's home? That's a really important question. Or do you want some combination, right? Do you want it sometimes in your home, sometimes out of your home? Things to consider there is, I've done both, but I think Emily, we've all done both probably. When
Yes.
the care is in your home, it's wonderful, but your kids are home and they're playing with your toys and they're eating the food in your house. And, it's as if people were here all day. So it's a little bit
Right.
more messy, a little louder. And again, sometimes that's great. Sometimes that's really hard. Versus, when they're out of the house, you do have a little bit more space to work or even like get the laundry done in peace or, whatever it
Mhm.
may be. So just something to consider. Then of course, cost, I think there's a lot of conversation around childcare and how, the problem is there's none of it and it's too expensive. And it's just,
Yes.
that's true, right? It's a supply demand problem. When you have less supply and higher demand, your supply price can often go up. And that's simply the world we're living in. The other piece that doesn't get talked to about as much is just the fact that the people providing the care also need a salary and also need a living wage. And so it
Mhm.
becomes a little bit of an intractable problem. But that's where like daycare centers are great, right? So if you start to get one-to-many or home daycares, you can start to see some cost savings there. And if that
Mhm.
model works for you, that's a great option. June Care is interesting because it is more affordable because our hosts are caring for their own children while they're caring for your kids. So they're getting paid for something they already do. And so it's
Mm.
typically going to be a more affordable option than a nanny and sometimes even more affordable than a home daycare, depending on your match and your host. So
Right.
cost is something to really consider. I would say like on the scale, the most affordable would be a daycare center and the most expensive is an in-home nanny. And then
Yeah.
everything's kind of falling in between there. And then the final one is just like, what is your parenting philosophy? And this is important regardless of the option you choose. Like, are you going to choose a play-based daycare center? Or do you want more curriculum based? Do
Yeah.
you want to have an in-home nanny because it's very important to you that, your kids are on a very strict schedule and you need to have a controlled environment for that? So, and this is something I really do encourage parents to talk about with their partners too, because often
Of course.
partners are not
Yes.
always on the same page. And so then when you're not on the same page, you have to figure out what your non-negotiables are. So
Yeah.
I really do encourage parents, instead of only focusing on your wants, really think about, okay, what will we definitely not put up with, which then will just help you kind of broaden your options, regardless of kind of the type of care you're looking for. So that's
Yeah.
how we guide people. We also have a list. We have lists of interview questions that we're happy to provide to your community as well, so that you are prepared when you're interviewing and you know the right questions to ask,
Yeah.
and help you make a decision.
Yeah. I imagine that's a wonderful list to have and is super helpful. Yeah.
Mhm.
What, so one of the, like a big concern I hear often from my clients and parents that I work with is always like a safety, like what is the safest way, or how do you know that your child's safe, especially if you're talking about like small children, babies that can't communicate and say like things happen. Is there like what do you say? What do you say to parents about that?
Yeah,
How can they make sure the child care is safe?
yeah. I can kind of tell you how we coach parents, and then Emily, I don't know if you're
Mhm.
comfortable talking through our screening process for hosts on the platform. Um, but really for us, we encourage parents to take the time to interview several options. So don't just, you know, match or book or take a reservation with the first childcare provider you meet with.
Right,
Even if you
right.
go back, like make sure you look, because you'll start to, it just like anything, the more you do it and the more you engage
Yeah.
with different options, you're going to learn, and you're going to kind of learn
Yes.
what things feel like. I also think if you can talk to references, it's
Mhm.
something we do, which Emily will go through, but talk to people who know this person, who have seen this person with other children, with their own children. And then I think it's really important to set clear expectations, because I think what happens most of the time when it's like a safety, quote unquote, safety thing is the parents haven't really talked about what they're comfortable with. So if you always want your child to be buckled backwards in a car seat and never forwards, you need to make that really clear, because people have different ages and stages where they get comfortable turning the car seat around, right? That's one example. I used to make my childcare providers cut grapes into 8 pieces because I had a choking phobia. Okay. And I know that's crazy, but I decided to just align on 8 pieces because it was something measurable. And I was like, if that grape has been cut into 8 pieces or not, probably could have been 4 or 2, but you know what I mean? Like, I think it's just getting really clear about what are you worried about? And then what can you agree on with your childcare provider to just make sure you're on the same page. And, then we have done cameras before. That has to be something you guys agree to together, but that can often help, even if it's just like in the playroom. You ask, would it be possible for me to have a camera on during these hours, or something that feels comfortable? I think that's totally fair to ask, especially if it's your first child and you just want to be able to check in. But we take this seriously at June-Care. We have a whole team that does host screening and onboarding. And Emily, maybe you can talk through that process a little bit.
Sure. So as we mentioned earlier, June-Care, everyone who's hosting with June-Care is a primary care provider. So has had or has kids of their own. More often than not, I would say almost all the time, they have their kids home with them at the same time, which is what makes it unique. So in addition to that, a huge percentage, and I think it's, quote me if I'm wrong though, Gretchen, is it like 95% of them have former childcare experience as well. So a lot of our hosts are like former or current teachers, have a master's or major or whatever in child development, that sort of thing. So it's really neat to see these moms want to get more involved and help care for other kids. And they come with so much experience. But in addition to that, we do what's called a better than best in class screening process. And so we verify our hosts with like a quick interview to see. Basically, we give them a verified badge if we find that they meet our criteria for hosting with us. And then we run like the standard checks, like social security check, national criminal search, sex offender search, global watch list. We check their references, check their online presence. What else? I'm trying to think if there's anything that I'm missing, but ultimately, sorry. I was just going to say, it comes down to also, we really encourage the families that are going to be working together to do a meet and greet with one another, whether that's virtual or in person, just like you're interviewing a babysitter or something.com. So, because you ultimately know, you have to trust your gut if you feel comfortable with this other parent.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I guess one of the things, and you guys just made me think of that as you were talking, like I'll hear parents, it's like, they know they need help and support, like they need some other sort of childcare situation for whatever reason, like their daycare service isn't working out, or the nanny they have, they just need more support than what they can get, either because of it costs too much, or what the time they can provide or whatever. But they're like overwhelmed with just even like starting or how to look or what to do. Like, do you have recommendations on that, or just even like that whole interviewing process and checking references, like already feeling so like maxed out with their time? Do you have suggestions, or what would you
this is
tell
part
a
of the whole
parent?
reason. This is part of the whole reason we started June-Care, honestly. And if it turns into June-Care is everyone's first childcare, and then they move on, like once they get comfortable, that's totally great, because it's all about learning how to find help, how to ask for help, and then also ultimately being willing to help others yourself. That's kind of really why I was here. What's great about our model, and this is on purpose based on what you said and kind of that anxiety, is we are doing the screening. So all the steps that Emily just laid out, we have we're all parents here. And so we have kind of this unspoken philosophy that if we wouldn't leave our own children with the June house, like we're not going to suggest anyone else does. And that's really important, right? Because we are trying to build a brand of trust. We need this to be a very safe place
Yeah.
for children. And so far, we're constantly blown away by the quality of the parents who are signing up, really wanting to help. And I think it's
Mhm.
just that first step, right? Like it's so hard
Yeah.
to leave your child for the first time. So take it
No.
easy, take it slow, maybe start with an hour or two and just
Yeah.
go sit in your car outside the house. You know,
Exactly. I say that all the time to
but
parents.
just
Yes.
it's a muscle
Yeah.
and it
Yeah.
Yeah.
feels impossible the first
Yeah.
time. We forget,
Right.
right? But that first
Yeah.
time when we left our kids, it was like,
Oh yeah.
because we barely knew how to care for them ourselves. It's like, how is anyone
Right.
else going to figure this
I
out?
know. I know.
And so that's why
So
having
true.
another mom, who's done it before, who knows the kind of communication you're going to want as a first time mom,
Yeah.
can be a really safe space to start.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so great. That's so great. Well, I mean, I just love all the information. You've just like, you guys have shared such a wealth of information today, and it's like so valuable. But where can people find you if they want to learn more, whether they because they need the support, or they would love to be like, hey, I think I could do that. I could be a host. Like where can they find you? Where do they start?
Emily, you want to take that one?
Sure. Junecare.co or junecare.com now. But they can go to junecare.co and they can create a profile to sign up. They can also send us an email anytime, support at junecare.co. You can also reach Gretchen or me directly just by our first names, Gretchen at junecare.co and Emily at junecare.co. But we're more than happy to help with anything when it comes to just even taking families through like a tutorial on how to navigate our app and understand how to connect with hosts or families in the area, all of it. So yeah.
Yeah, and it's totally free, totally free.
Oh, that was my question.
Yeah,
Awesome.
so it's just, you can just come and create an account. You can select whether you're there to host or you want to find childcare or you just want to learn more. And just by creating an account, which is just basically your phone number, then you can browse and you can see who in your area is hosting, who in your area is looking for help. It's dynamic, right? So it's real time. So it's changing every day. And from there, you can kind of decide if you want to give it a go.
All right. That sounds amazing. Well, thank you both for being here with me today and sharing just the whole landscape of childcare for parents out there today, and giving us some information and giving us some resources. And I'm excited to be able to provide this for parents out there, because I know it's so important. So any final words or anything else you'd like to say before we go?
Yeah, I think just thanks for what you're doing again. You're part of the solution, and thank you so much for including us in your conversation with your community. We really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you, Catherine.
Thank you both for what you're doing for parents out there, because I know firsthand how valuable it is for them. So thank you. And until next time, take care.